We could be speaking to you every day. You probably don't have the time for us every day, but the news that continues to emerge from the latest batch of the Epstein files, and the focus of one of your recent stories is Goldman Sachs's Kathy Rumler. She corresponded with Jeffrey Epstein about a prostitution scandal a few years ago. What did you learn?
Yeah, this was actually quite intriguing and certainly raised a lot of questions. I came across some emails in the cache, and it showed that Kathy Rumler was corresponding with Jeffrey Epstein about a prostitution scandal that engulfed the Secret Service in 2012 in Colombia. And
this is a while ago. When you wrote this, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that happened.
Yeah. And essentially what happened was it eventually engulfed the White House as well, right? She was White House counsel at the time. So you had some oversight committees that were investigating it. The White House was taking a beating in the media about what did they know and when did they know it, who of their personnel were involved. Kathy Rumler leaves the White House, resigns her position in June of 2014. Apparently, she had just met Epstein around that time. In October 2014, there were news reports coming out, notably from the Washington Post, about the White House having denied this for years, and now suddenly it turns out that there was something there. She starts corresponding with Epstein and reading him into what went on behind the scenes as the White House was investigating this. And she provides him with an email that was intended for a reporter. It was addressed to Carol. It was supposed to be for a journalist. And
it was not me. I'm just telling you.
Not you, Carol. But it read him into how the White House handled this investigation. And Epstein then started to correspond with her about it, even offering edits. This was non-public info, by the way.
Yeah. This is new stuff.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting on so many different levels. First, there always seems to be, or often, Jason, as you guys are going through this and uncovering thing, of individuals in high-profile positions, politics, business, you name it, who are didn't really know this guy. And then when you start digging into these troves of documents, you see hundreds of emails and a level of intimacy and a relationship that's there. And I feel like that's part of this story.
It definitely is part of the story. I mean, this one stood out to me.
And then there's the government side, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's true. And this one stood out to me because, she was sharing this with Epstein, but also had recently met Epstein. So this is really insidery, or inside, info.
Yeah.
And it just didn't really make sense as to why he would be brought into it at that time. But to your point, yeah, I mean, that's what we're seeing throughout the files. As you dig deeper, you see how deep those connections are.
One of the reasons we like talking to you is because we get information about the reporting process and how you're able to get access to these documents. This is sort of a different than the typical FOIA request that you would work on. But why is this story coming out now?
Yeah.
And why did, I don't, feel free. I don't want you to give away everything away and how you guys are doing this, but why didn't this come out, 2 weeks ago? Because these documents have all been there.
It's a great question. And one of the things that we do as we're going through these files is, you can imagine, there's 1,000, probably more than 1,000 reporters on it, and then you have the public, is kind of trying to do a deep dive to see if anyone has reported on it, right? So people are doing different kinds of searches in the documents. I mean, even, our folks, for certain companies, certain individuals. And so it's just, it wasn't caught. Nobody found this until we found it.
That's how massive these files are.
That's how big. Oh yeah.
Because one could say okay, well, we could just do a Control F, or I've searched the Epstein files for names. Yeah. And it seems like you can just kind of keep clicking.
Yeah.
And any of us can get access.
Anyone can go onto the website and search names, but we also have a system here, without giving away too much, which allows us to kind of do more than just the searches, but to actually connect the dots, put these puzzle pieces together. I do want to note that spokeswoman for Kathy Rumler, she did respond saying she did nothing wrong. She has nothing to hide. And that was her comment on this.
But let's go back to then the government part of this.
Yeah.
And this is also something that's being explored over in the UK, that all of a sudden there's somebody who had a connection to Epstein. Maybe you can debate how deep that relationship was, but all of a sudden there's maybe access to a government or things that might be part of national security or national strategy. And I think this is where, I'm not saying there's any conclusions here, but it just shows a relationship that has access to the White House. And maybe documents that are not supposed to be revealed, or things that,
or information that's supposed to be revealed.
And that's what we're trying to figure out, right?
Yeah, and you have to remember also that at the time that they were writing these emails, at the time that they were discussing, a prostitution scandal engulfing the Secret Service, no one had any idea that this one day would be public, right? So same with us, right? We send an email and not thinking that it would ever get out there. But so they were having these discussions with that assumption that this would never be out there. And now we're seeing it. And that's why you're sort of getting a glimpse into not just what was discussed, but how high it went, in terms of the levels of power.
Oh, go ahead, Carol.
Well, are there expectations? And again, I don't want you to give any great reveal, but I mean, as you guys are going through, and my understanding is things aren't always in chronological order. Like it's really piecing together this puzzle. But Jason, this idea that there is still so much yet to be known. And again, when you talk about whether it's in various governments or politics, that you guys are just starting to find things. At a higher level.
Yeah, and I think there will be even bigger reveals down the road. Once you sort of kind of get a real handle on everything here and connect those dots, because to your point, it is out of order and you do have to put these puzzle pieces together. But that leads to additional questions, additional findings, and it will give you a better picture as to what it all meant. Why their correspondence took place on a particular subject, or a certain bank was moving money for him.
You're someone who does this. Like, you get access to files that most of us wouldn't think about, look about, right?
Yeah.
So you are constantly getting, not constantly, but maybe constantly getting information that isn't public, and kind of probably going through stuff and being like, oh my God, or some of it's probably boring. But how do you put this cache or these constant drop of documents, like how do you classify this, or is this on a whole other level?
This is on a whole other level. I mean, I do get documents regularly. I mean, the voluminous nature of these records makes it stand out, So,
quantity and quality?
Definitely both, without a doubt. Because, just as an example, you're not just getting emails. What you're getting is the DOJ's internal emails as well discussing this.
Do you think we'll get to a point where you will say, we've done it, we've combed through all of these, and everything that we know is out there?
I do think we'll get to that point, but it will be, probably not for quite some time. And then it's always going to be where you keep your ear to the ground. You kind of like just make sure you check it every now and then, because other things are going to absolutely pop up.
Well, how do we know what hasn't come out, or what you're still waiting for? At least in the so-called Epstein files.
Yeah, I mean, it's all based now on subject matter, right? We have certain subject matter, certain companies, certain areas that we want to dig into. And believe it or not, you throw in a search through our own systems that we have into it, and you're starting to find pieces. But I think, as I mentioned last week, when we discussed some of these files, is you're then going out to report it out.
Yeah.
So the great thing about the records is that it gives you a roadmap, but then actually expanding upon that and speaking to people outside, who may be able to give you a piece that allows you to sort of make sense of it all. That helps with the picture.
Are people, just got 20 seconds, increasingly being willing to speak?
They are.
Yeah,
They are.
as this moves along.
Yeah. They absolutely are.